Let me tell you something that most people never realize until it's too late. Your life does not get better by chance. It gets better by change. You can pray. You can wish. You can wait. But nothing will change until you do. I was broke, tired, blaming the government, the economy, and everybody but myself. And then I discovered 3 simple rules. Not from a guru, not from a book, from life, the hard way. By the end of this, your mindset will never be the same, because you'll understand exactly why you're stuck and how to never be stuck again. If you don't like where you're at, move. You're not a tree. Let that line settle in for a second, because here's the brutal truth. Most people will spend 10, 20, even 30 years stuck in a place they hate, simply because it's familiar. I've seen it more times than I can count. A man hates his job. He dreads Monday, complains through Friday, lives only for weekend, and yet he stays, year after year. Why? It pays the bills, he says. It's stable. But let me ask you something. Is survival the same as living? There's a difference between being rooted and being stuck. Trees grow where they're planted, but humans, we have the gift of movement, of decision, of reinvention. But most won't move, not because they can't, but because they're afraid. Afraid of the unknown, afraid of judgment, afraid they'll fail. But here's the paradox. Staying stuck guarantees failure. Not the dramatic kind, the slow kind, the kind that eats away at your soul quietly while you smile in front of others and die a little more each morning. One day, I asked a woman why she hadn't left a toxic relationship. She whispered, "Because I don't know who I'd be without him." That crushed me. We build lives around identities that don't even serve us. Jobs, relationships, routines, some of them expired years ago. But we stay, because change feels like death. And in a way, it is the death of the old you. But on the other side of that death, a new life, one where you get to choose, one where you get to grow, one where your joy isn't rationed out like scraps, but lived in full supply. Let me be clear. Moving doesn't always mean quitting your job or selling your house. Sometimes it means shifting your mindset, speaking up for yourself, drawing a line where you've let people cross for too long. Moving means taking back control of your direction, because if you don't, someone else will steer it for you. There's a powerful story about a man who lived near the ocean. Every day, he complained about the storms, the salt, the erosion. I asked him, "Why don't you move inland?" He said, "Because I've always been here." Imagine that, staying in a storm because it's the only one you've known. Your past does not have veto power over your future. The most successful people I know aren't the smartest or most talented. They're just the ones with the courage to say, "This isn't it," and move. So here's your challenge. What area of your life are you pretending to be a tree? Where are you rooted out of habit, not purpose? Don't wait for the perfect moment. There is none. The pain of staying will eventually outweigh the fear of moving. And when it does, don't hesitate. You're not a tree. You're a force. Now move. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. That's not just a clever phrase. It's the difference between a wish and a reality. Everybody wants something. A better body. More money. A peaceful mind. But the truth is, wanting is easy. Doing? That's rare. Discipline doesn't ask, "How do you feel today?" It doesn't care if it's raining, or if you're tired. It doesn't care if your friends are skipping out, or if your mood isn't quite right. Discipline says, "Do it anyway." I once met a young man, sharp, talented, big dreams. He told me, "I want to be successful." I said, "Great. What time did you wake up today?" He paused. "Around 10:30. Now, I'm not against sleep, but what I told him next was this. You can't build an empire with a snooze button. Discipline doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. You don't need to do it all today, but you need to show up, day after day, especially when it's boring, especially when no one's clapping. Because discipline is not about intensity, it's about integrity. Can you keep a promise to yourself? That's the question. Psychologically, every time you break your word to yourself, even in small things, You teach your brain that your voice doesn't matter, that your dreams don't matter, and eventually your self-trust erodes. But every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you build something stronger than confidence. You build credibility with yourself. That's what discipline really is. It's not punishment. It's self-respect in action. You know what's more exhausting than waking up early and doing the work? Living with regret. I once heard a man say, "Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons." And he was right. You'll never look back in 5 years and say, "I wish I didn't take care of my body," or "I wish I hadn't built that skill," or "Man, I regret getting better." But you will regret drifting, coasting, wasting time on things that felt urgent but meant nothing. A woman I met once told me, "I've been trying to write a book for 10 years. I asked her, "How many words have you written?" She looked down. "None." Discipline writes the first sentence, then the next, until a book appears, until a life changes. And here's the secret. It gets easier, not because life slows down, but because you get stronger. Discipline compounds. It builds momentum. It becomes identity. You're no longer someone trying to change. You are someone who follows through, and that changes everything. So start today with one small act. Drink the water. Take the walk. Turn off the distractions. Open the book. Make the call. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be done. Because discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be. And every step you take across that bridge is a step toward the person you were born to become. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. It sounds harsh at first, but it's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever learn. Because the moment you stop waiting for life to get easier and start working to get stronger, everything changes. See, most people spend their whole life negotiating with reality. If only my boss was different, if only the economy was better, if only I had more support. But success doesn't respond to if-onlys. It responds to responsibility. I remember meeting a man who told me, "I could have done something great if life hadn't been so hard." I looked him in the eye and said, "Maybe, or maybe you missed the point. Maybe life was hard because it was trying to make you great." Obstacles aren't roadblocks. They're resistance. And just like in the gym, resistance builds strength. If everything were easy, you wouldn't grow. You wouldn't dig deep. You wouldn't discover who you really are when the pressure's on and the lights are off. Life's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be worth it. And here's the good news. You can get better. You can get wiser, sharper, more disciplined, more compassionate, more strategic. But only if you stop blaming the test and start training for it. I once asked a room full of people, "Who here want $1 million life?" All the hands went up. Then I asked, "Who here has built $1 million habits?" The room went quiet. There's the gap. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. But when you start raising those standards, not just wishing but working, you stop resenting the challenge. You start respecting it. Because you realize the challenge isn't the way. It is the way. Let me tell you a story. A young woman I knew wanted to be a public speaker. She said, "I'm terrified of speaking." I told her, "Good. That means there's something on the other side of that fear that you need to claim." She didn't wait for the fear to leave. She worked anyway. Day by day, she recorded videos. She bombed a few speeches, but she kept going. And eventually, the fear didn't disappear. It just got smaller compared to who she became. And that's the truth of it. When you get better, everything else feels easier. So don't pray for lighter burdens. Pray for stronger shoulders. Don't curse the mountain. Become a better climber. Because if you keep growing, keep learning, keep showing up with your whole heart, there's no challenge that can stop you. Life isn't going to make it easier, but you can make yourself stronger. And once you do, you'll stop waiting for a break and start becoming the breakthrough. You can't hire someone to do your push-ups. You can pay for the trainer. You can buy the nicest gym in town. You can even surround yourself with the best support in the world. But at the end of the day, no one can sweat for you. And that's the truth about growth. No one can do it for you. We live in a world obsessed with shortcuts. People want the hack, the secret, the done-for-you version of success. But personal development doesn't come with a subscription plan. You don't get stronger by watching someone else lift. You get stronger by showing up again and again, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when no one's watching. I once worked with a young entrepreneur who said, "Jim, I hired a coach, joined a mastermind, and bought the top courses, but nothing's changing." I looked at him and said, "Let me ask you, are you doing the work or just buying the tools?" Silence. See, tools don't transform you. Application does. You can have the best nutrition plan. Still won't change your health until you eat the food. You can have the perfect morning routine. Still won't change your life until you wake up and live it. It's the same in every area: wealth, mindset, relationships. No one else can do the push-ups for you. They're your muscles, your responsibility. Psychologically, this is the moment most people check out. Why? Because it means excuses have to die. You can't blame your boss, your past, or your partner anymore. It's on you now. But that's not a burden. That's freedom. Because if it's up to you, then you can change it. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait. You just need to begin. I'll never forget a woman I met at a seminar. She spent years in therapy, read every book, listened to every podcast, but her life wasn't moving. She said, "I just don't know why I'm still stuck." I asked, "What's the one thing you know you need to do, but keep avoiding?" She whispered, "Leave the relationship." That was her push-up. No one else could do it. No one could decide for her. No one could walk out the door. That was hers to carry, hers to conquer. And she did. And everything changed. It's not about how much you know. It's about what you practice. And here's the most honest advice I can give. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy. But it works. Because growth is earned, rep by rep, choice by choice, day by day. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. And when the soreness kicks in, physically, emotionally, mentally, don't quit. That's the signal you're building something. You can't outsource effort. You can't delegate transformation. You can't hire someone to do your push-ups. And you don't need to, because you've got everything it takes to do them yourself. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, repeated every day. Not once, not sometimes. Every day. It's not complicated. It's not mysterious. But that's exactly why most people miss it. They're looking for the dramatic, when the real power lies in consistent. I had a friend who told me once, "Jim, I want to be in great shape, but I don't have time for the gym." I asked him, "Do you have 10 minutes for push-ups?" He said, "Well, yeah, but what difference does that make?" And there it is. Most people underestimate the power of small disciplines because they don't produce fireworks on day one. But let me tell you what does happen. They create momentum. And momentum, over time, becomes transformation. Psychologically, we crave novelty. We want the new plan, the new strategy, the overnight change. But success doesn't respond to novelty. It responds to loyalty. Loyalty to your values. Loyalty to your routine. Loyalty to those simple disciplines, even when they feel small. Especially when they feel small. 1 apple a day keeps the doctor away. Not 7 apples on Sunday. It's the daily practice that matters. Do you read 10 pages a day? That's over 3,600 pages a year. That's knowledge you didn't have. Do you save $10 a day? That's $3,650 in a year. That's momentum you didn't build before. You see, the disciplines themselves are rarely glamorous. Wake up early. Plan your day. Show up on time. Say no to things that steal your energy. Practice gratitude. Exercise. Eat clean. Follow through. Simple? Yes. Easy? No. Because the moment something feels repetitive, we tell ourselves, this can't be enough. And so we stop. We break the chain. We chase something shinier. And then we wonder why the results vanish. Let me share a story. A man I once mentored was struggling in sales. He had the skills, but no consistency. He'd make 20 calls one day and 0 the next. I told him, You don't need more motivation. You need a rhythm. So he committed 5 calls before lunch every day, no matter what. After 3 months, he was top of his division. Why? Not because he worked harder, but because he worked wiser. He picked a simple discipline and respected it. That's the secret most people ignore. Success doesn't come from doing extraordinary things occasionally. It comes from doing ordinary things, extraordinarily well and without excuse, every day, because the days stack up. They build identity, they build character, and eventually, they build a life. So don't look for the shortcut. Look for the simple step you can repeat today, and tomorrow, and the next. That's how you win. Not all at once, but one small, powerful discipline at a time. Simple, not easy, but worth it. And the best part? Anyone can do it. Even you. Your life will never exceed your standards. Not your dreams. Not your hopes. Your standards. Because no matter what you want, what you tolerate will always win. We all have a thermostat inside of us, set by our standards. And no matter how much success you taste, how much love you desire, how much money you chase, if your internal setting is low, you'll always find a way to sabotage, settle, or slide back down. It's not that people don't want more. It's that their standards don't demand more. You don't get what you wish for. You get what you're willing to refuse to live without. I knew a man once, smart, talented, charismatic. Every few months, he'd talk about starting a business, getting in shape, turning things around. But 6 months later, he'd be in the same place. Why? Not because he lacked ability, but because he had a low standard for follow-through. Good intentions were enough for him. But good intentions don't build great lives. Standards do. Your standards are the invisible boundaries you set for yourself, what you will and won't accept, in your habits, in your income, in your relationships, in your environment. They're not goals. They're rules you live by. And here's the catch. You teach the world how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you keep allowing disrespect, don't be surprised when it keeps showing up. If you keep tolerating your own procrastination, don't be shocked when results don't follow. If you keep accepting just enough, don't expect more than enough to suddenly appear. You've got to raise the floor, not just aim for the ceiling. I once met a woman who had spent years in unhealthy relationships. One day, she looked in the mirror and said, "No more." She didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She upgraded her standard from, "I hope they treat me well," to, "I only welcome people who do." And her entire life changed. Not overnight, but over time, the world adjusted to her new rules. That's the power of standards. They tell the world who you are, even before you speak. Want to know your real standards? Look at your daily actions, your health, your finances, your relationships. Wherever you are right now is the level you've accepted, even if it's not what you say you want. And the beautiful truth is this. You can change your life by changing your standards. Today, decide what's no longer acceptable. Draw the line. Tighten the circle. Upgrade your habits. Speak up for your worth. Because the moment you raise your standards, you raise your life. Don't wait for the world to hand you more. Expect more. Become more. Demand more from yourself first. Because no matter how high you aim, you will never outgrow the level you settle for. And if you want more out of life, then it starts here. Set a higher standard and never back down from it. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Discipline may sting, yes, but regret crushes. Discipline asks for a small sacrifice now. Regret demands a lifetime of what if. One is measured in moments, the other in memories you can't undo. And here's the brutal truth. You will feel pain in this life. That's non-negotiable. The only choice you get is which one. Will it be the weight of getting up early, or the weight of sleeping through your potential? Will it be the soreness from a workout, or the heaviness of staring into the mirror, wondering how you got here? Will it be the discomfort of an honest conversation, or the torment of years spent pretending everything was fine? You choose. I once met a man in his 70s. He'd been successful by most definitions, owned a few properties, had a comfortable retirement, But behind his eyes was a quiet sadness. He told me, "Jim, I gave up on my dream of being a writer when I was 30. I told myself I'd get back to it later." He never did. He still had his notebooks, still remembered the stories. But now there was no more time. And with tears in his eyes, he said, "I thought discipline was too hard, but regret is unbearable." That stuck with me. See, discipline is never fun in the moment. It's waking up when you're tired, saying no when temptation knocks, choosing focus over comfort. It takes effort, but it builds you. It's the quiet architect behind every strong body, every brilliant mind, every successful life. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. But it works, silently, daily, shaping your destiny. Regret is just as disciplined, but in reverse. Skip the hard choice today, and you train yourself to quit tomorrow. Put off what matters, and you teach yourself to settle. Ignore the small pain now, and it multiplies later tenfold. Psychologically, regret digs deeper than failure, because failure teaches. Regret lingers. It whispers at night. It rewinds a clock and plays scenes you can't change. Discipline, it sharpens your character. Regret, it corrodes your soul. And the tragedy is, most people only understand this when it's too late. When the door is already closed, the time has already passed, the chance has already slipped away. But you have time. You're not too late. So take the ounce now. The extra rep, the hard conversation. The book instead of the screen. The savings instead of the splurge. It may feel inconvenient, but it's far lighter than carrying a lifetime of missed chances. The pain of discipline only lasts a moment. The pain of regret, it lasts forever. So when you hear that inner voice, the one that says do it tomorrow, just skip today, it doesn't matter. Remember this. You're not avoiding pain. You're choosing which one to live with. And if you're going to carry something for the rest of your life, make sure it's pride, not regret. You can have excuses or results, not both. That's the trade. That's the truth. And every day, whether you realize it or not, you're choosing one or the other. Excuses feel good in the moment. They justify our comfort. They protect our ego. They say, "It's not my fault. I didn't have time. The odds were against me." But here's the catch. They also protect your limits. Results don't care how hard it was. Results don't want your story. They want your action, your consistency, your ownership. There was a young man I once mentored, sharp, talented, and full of ambition. But every time we met, there was a reason he hadn't moved forward. My boss isn't supportive. I'm not a morning person. The market is tough right now. Week after week, it was something. So finally, I asked him, "Are you more committed to your growth or your excuse?" Silence. That's when he realized his excuses had become more believable than his goals. See, the mind is clever. It builds airtight stories to explain why things didn't happen. And those stories become your identity if you're not careful. Excuses are psychological comfort food. They taste good but leave you empty. But here's the difference between the successful and the struggling. The successful still have reasons, but they don't make them rulers. They get knocked down, too. But instead of saying, "Here's why I can't," they say, "Here's what I'll do anyway." Thomas Edison tried 10,000 times before the light bulb worked. He had every excuse to quit. But he didn't, because he wasn't chasing perfection. He was chasing results. You got to ask yourself, are your excuses stronger than your desire? Because the world isn't waiting for your conditions to be perfect. It's moving with or without you. And the people who rise, who succeed, who break through, they face the same obstacles, but they trade their excuses for execution. Your background doesn't decide your future. Your education, helpful, but not a requirement. Your past mistakes, they can be lessons or limitations. You choose. You got to stop outsourcing your power to circumstances. Take it back. Own your life. Own your outcomes, even the hard ones. Because when you give up your excuses, something powerful happens. You finally step into the driver's seat. It's not about being perfect. It's about being responsible. At the end of your life, no one's handing out trophies for best excuse. You'll either have results to show or reasons you didn't. And trust me, the most painful words are, I could have. So choose results. Choose responsibility. Choose the life that's waiting for you on the other side of every excuse you're willing to give up. Because in the end, you can make progress or you can make excuses. But you can't make both. The moment you decide, everything changes. It's not the perfect plan, not the right timing, not even the perfect moment that changes everything. It's the decision. That one moment when you stop negotiating with yourself. That's when the shift happens. You see, your life right now is the sum of all the decisions you've made until this point. Every success, every failure, every place you've been, it's a reflection of the choices you've made, consciously or unconsciously. And here's the kicker. You can change it all in an instant. I remember meeting a man in his 40s, stuck in a job he hated. He told me, I don't know what happened, Jim. I woke up one day and realized I'm just going through the motions. I've got a good life, but there's something missing. I want more. I asked him, what do you want more of? He didn't know, but that's the point. He hadn't decided. He was still waiting for the perfect time, the right motivation, the magic answer. I said to him, listen to me. The moment you decide that your life is going to be different, everything changes. That's the turning point. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. And he looked at me like I had just handed him the key to a door he hadn't even noticed was there. Because here's the truth. Nothing changes until you decide. People spend years thinking about their dreams, contemplating their goals, hoping for a breakthrough. But nothing will change until you make a decision that you won't go back on. And when you make that decision, there's no going back. Take a look at the most successful people around you. They've all had moments when they made a decision. They decided to start the business. They decided to get in shape. They decided to become better. And when they made that decision, it didn't matter what obstacles showed up. Their decision was stronger than their doubts. Because the moment you decide, you've already shifted your mindset. You've shifted your focus. You've set the wheels in motion. You can choose to stay stuck. You can choose to live in a land of what if and maybe someday. Or you can choose to make today the day everything changes. When I made the decision to change my life, it wasn't some grand, dramatic moment. It was just me saying, I'm done with this. I'm done with the excuses. I'm done with the waiting. And from that moment, everything shifted. My focus shifted. My actions shifted. The people around me changed. And the world responded to that decision. You don't need all the answers. You don't need a detailed plan. You don't need permission. You just need to decide. So today, right now, ask yourself, what decision are you going to make? Because the moment you decide to go after what you want, the moment you decide to stop settling, the moment you decide to show up and do the work, everything changes. And when that change comes, it will be because you took control, not of your circumstances, but of your decision. The moment you decide, everything changes. Who you become is more important than what you achieve. We live in a world obsessed with results, with achievements, with checking off boxes and collecting trophies. But let me tell you something. The greatest success in life isn't about what you have. It's about who you are. I once met a man who had all the accolades. He had the big house, the fancy car, the business success everyone around him envied. He seemed to have everything, but there was a hollow look in his eyes. He'd worked tirelessly for years, climbing the corporate ladder, building his empire. But when I asked him what he felt he had achieved, he paused. Jim, I don't know, he said. I've reached all the milestones I set for myself, but I've lost touch with what really matters. I've neglected the person I was becoming in the process. You see, achievement doesn't define us. It's the person we become in pursuit of those achievements that holds the true power. Let's think about it. Every successful person you admire has transformed, grown, and evolved to get to where they are. But their success wasn't just built on their accomplishments. It was built on the character they forged along the way. Consider Michael Jordan. Sure, he's remembered for his championships, his records, his countless accolades. But ask anyone who knows his story, and they'll tell you about the countless hours he spent practicing, the failures he endured, the lessons he learned from every loss. His greatness wasn't just in his basketball stats. It was in who he became through that journey. The work ethic, the resilience, the discipline. You see, the pursuit of achievement often teaches you things you can't learn in any classroom. It challenges you, forces you to confront your weaknesses, forces you to grow. But the person you become while chasing your goals, that's where the real wealth is. Now, I want to challenge you to look at your own life. Ask yourself, who are you becoming? Are you growing stronger, kinder, more disciplined? Or are you losing sight of your values, your integrity, your sense of purpose? The things you achieve can be taken away. The money, the titles, the possessions, they can all disappear in a moment. But the character you build, the resilience you forge, the wisdom you acquire, they stay with you forever. A man may lose his job, but if he's cultivated a strong sense of character and personal growth, he'll be back on his feet in no time. But if all his focus was on the title, the paycheck, the recognition, when those things vanish, so does his sense of self-worth. Don't let your life be defined solely by what you achieve. Let it be defined by who you become. Because who you are is the true measure of your success. The relationships you build, the impact you make, the integrity you hold, all of that matters more than any material gain. When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, your achievements will follow naturally. But even if they don't, you'll have something far more valuable. The knowledge that you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. So focus on growth. Focus on character. Because in the end, who you become will always outweigh what you achieve. So here's the truth no one tells you. You're one rule away from a revolution. Not a small change. A total shift. The rules that changed my life weren't found in a book. They were written in sweat, in struggle, in silence. If you don't like your story, rewrite it. If you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. And if you feel like you're too far behind, remember this. Some of the most powerful comebacks start when no one's watching. So choose your rule. Choose your moment. And make this the day you stop waiting. Because the moment you stop chasing change is the moment you become it.